"You can't do this, Maria. He's my husband." My sister Clara shrieked, her voice echoing in the sterile hospital corridor. I just stood there, clutching the signed papers, the ink still feeling wet against my trembling fingers. I didn't say a word. I just looked at her, then at the closed door of my husband, Mark's, room. She thought she had won, that she had taken everything from me. But the real game had just begun. My story starts not in that cold hallway, but years earlier, in a sun-drenched kitchen filled with the smell of my mother's apple pie. Clara and I were inseparable. "You two are two peas in a pod," Dad would say, ruffling our hair. I was the older one, the responsible one. Clara was the dreamer, her head always in the clouds, her eyes sparkling with grand plans. I adored her, protected her. When she wanted to open a small boutique after college, I didn't hesitate. I gave her my life savings, every penny I had scraped together. "For your dream, sis," I'd said, hugging her tightly. Her boutique, Clara's closet, became her world. I was so proud. It was a small success, but it was hers. Then I met Mark. He was kind, steady, and loved me for who I was. He wasn't rich, just a simple man with a big heart. Our life was quiet, filled with small joys. We bought a little house, planted a garden. Meanwhile, Clara's ambitions grew. Her small boutique wasn't enough. She wanted more, a bigger store, a designer label, a life of luxury. She started borrowing money, small amounts at first. "Just until this new shipment sells, Maria," she'd promise. I never said no, how could I? She was my sister. But the small amounts grew larger. Soon she was in deep owing money to suppliers and lenders. The sparkle in her eyes was replaced by a constant flicker of anxiety. One rainy evening she showed up at my door, drenched and desperate. "I'm ruined, Maria," she sobbed. "They're going to take everything." She needed a huge sum, an amount I couldn't possibly imagine. Mark and I had some savings put aside for our future, for starting a family, but seeing her so broken, I couldn't bear it. Mark was hesitant. "Maria, this is everything we have, are you sure?" I looked at him, then thought of my sister. "She's family, Mark, we have to help." So we drained our account. Every last dollar, I handed her the check, and her relief was palpable. "I'll pay you back," she swore, her eyes welling with tears. "Every single cent, I promise." I believed her. She was my sister after all. For a few months, things seemed better. Clara's business stabilized, and she even started making small repayments. But then the payments stopped. Her calls became less frequent. When I visited her boutique, she was always too busy to talk. A cold knot of dread began to form in my stomach. Something was wrong. The distance between us grew into a chasm, and I felt like I was losing the one person I thought I could always count on. One day I got a call from an old family friend. "Maria," she said, her voice laced with pity, "did you see the news about Clara's expansion? She's opening a new flagship store downtown." I felt the floor drop from beneath me. A flagship store? With what money? I went online, and there it was, a glamorous article with a picture of Clara, beaming, cutting a red ribbon. The article quoted her. I couldn't have done it without the unconditional support of my family. The hypocrisy stung like a slap. My savings, our future, had been poured into her glamorous new venture, while she treated me like a stranger. That night I confronted her. I showed her the article. "What is this, Clara? Our money ... You said you were ruined." She didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. She just shrugged, her expression cold. "It was a business opportunity, Maria. You wouldn't understand. Besides, it was a gift, wasn't it?" "You said you wanted to help? A gift?" The word hung in the air, poisonous and sharp. The money that was meant to be for my children, for our security, was just a gift she felt entitled to. The sister I knew, the one I loved, was gone. In her place was a stranger wearing her face. The final blow came a year later. Mark, my strong, healthy Mark, collapsed at work. A sudden, severe brain aneurysm. The doctor said his chances were slim. He needed an experimental surgery, one our insurance wouldn't cover. The cost was astronomical, the exact amount I had given to Clara. I swallowed my pride. I called her, my voice breaking. "Clara, I need the money back. It's for Mark. It's life or death." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then her voice, cold as ice, I can't, Maria. The money is tied up in the business. You should have had better insurance. And then she hung up. Just like that, she hung up on her dying brother-in-law. She hung up on her sister. In that moment, something inside me broke. The love, the warmth, it all turned to ice. She had left my husband to die for her ambition, and I knew I would never forgive her. As Mark lay unconscious, the machines beeping a fragile rhythm of his life, an idea began to form in my mind. It was quiet, it was subtle, but it was relentless. Revenge wasn't about screaming or fighting. It was about taking back what was mine, piece by piece, without her ever seeing it coming. I sold our house, the one we'd filled with so much love, and moved into a tiny apartment near the hospital. I put every cent towards Mark's care, and I started to watch Clara's business, learning its every strength and, more importantly, its every weakness. Clara's flagship store was built on a mountain of debt and a fragile supply chain. I knew this because I had funded its foundation. I started by making small, anonymous investments in her direct competitors. Then, using my knowledge of the industry, I began feeding strategic tips to those same rivals about upcoming trends and supplier deals. I became a ghost, a whisper in the marketplace, slowly and meticulously undermining her from the shadows. Her sales started to dip. Her key employees were poached by competitors offering better deals I had secretly helped fund. Clara was panicking. She couldn't understand what was happening. Her empire was crumbling, and she had no idea I was the architect of its demise. The final piece of my plan involved her lead designer, a brilliant but underappreciated talent I knew Clara took for granted. I approached her, not with malice, but with an offer, a chance to start her own line with my financial backing. The designer, tired of Clara's ego, jumped at the chance. When she resigned, she took the boutique's entire upcoming collection design with her. It was the final nail in the coffin for Clara's closet, which brings us back to that hospital hallway. A few weeks prior, the doctors had approached me with a new option for Mark. Not a surgery, but a transfer to a long-term neurological care facility that had a revolutionary rehabilitation program. It was expensive, but it offered a flicker of hope. To pay for it, I had to take legal control of Mark's assets and his care, a move that required him to be declared legally incapacitated. The papers I held were the court order granting me power of attorney. Clara had heard about it, but she'd twisted the story. She arrived at the hospital screaming, accusing me of trying to pull the plug on Mark to inherit his fortune, a fortune that didn't exist, a fortune we had given to her. "You can't do this, Maria. He's my husband," she cried. She was putting on a show for the nurses, painting me as the villain, but I just stood there silently. I let her scream, because I knew the truth. I finally looked at her, my eyes clear and steady. "He's my husband, Clara, and I'm going to save him. The way you never saved me." I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, her false outrage echoing in the empty hall. She had no idea that her boutique was filing for bankruptcy that very afternoon. She had no idea that while she was busy performing, her world had already burned to the ground. My revenge wasn't loud or explosive. It was the quiet, steady beat of justice, the same way the machines had beeped for Mark. It was the slow, satisfying reclaiming of a life she tried to destroy. Mark did wake up, months later. His recovery is long, but we're together. Clara, I haven't heard from her. Sometimes the most powerful statements are made in silence. What do you think? Was my silence the right response, or is there always a time to speak up? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for listening to my story, and if it resonated with you, please consider subscribing for more.